We have a new Unity entity version. Just saw this last night. I haven't had a chance to play around with it myself, but we got a new 1.2.0-pre.12 version. So got a little bit of a fake out because the previous version was this -pre.6 and it said promotion preparation. So it seemed, at least to me, that like the next version was going to be the fully released version, non-pre-release version, actual, I guess certified or whatever version they call it. But anyways, we can kind of just go through some of the major changes here. So this is the regular entities package. So one new feature that they added is the create menu. So like when you right click to create a new script, they have script templates for iComponent data, iSystem, iJob entity, and Baker types under assets create entities. So nice that we have some more script templates for there. If you're already using Writer, then you do have some script templates available there, but nice to have these just right within the Unity editor here. Going into some of the kind of changes, so we have various performance improvements in baking, and it specifically calls out baking mesh-heavy scenes now takes 70% of what it did before. So nice solid improvement there. Significant performance improvements when creating archetypes and entity queries in worlds with a large number of existing archetypes and queries. So again, always good to see some kind of performance improvements there. Let's see. Entity query singleton methods now correctly handle cases where the query contains enableable components. So I guess if you created a query where it had some enableable components in there, it wouldn't always, get the exact singleton or singleton entity. However, get singleton entity and try get singleton entity cannot be used on queries with the enableable components, and that the singleton component itself cannot be enableable. So basically what that means is like, if you have an enableable component, you're trying to use that as like the singleton in your world, it actually won't work, which is something that I think would be helpful to have, so you don't have to like key off of another component or do some other weird kind of reference for that. But this does say that both constraints may be lifted in future release, so good to know that they're kind of considering that potential use case. By the way, check out last week's episode of the Hot Path Show where Tobias showed us his super singleton system. Next up, the archetype window and entity profiler module UI initialization. I wanted to highlight this out because there were specifically, I noticed a bug with the archetype window where it just straight up did not load. Like if I open the archetype window, it would just be completely blank. And that was only in the 1.2.0-6 version. I checked on regular 1.0 and it worked just fine, but for some reason the archetype window didn't load. So again, haven't had a chance to test this out myself, but I'm hoping that fixes that issue because the archetype window is nice to have sometimes. Next one, I increased the text and highlighted this because this is awesome. The entities hierarchy window would sometimes throw exceptions when entities are destroyed, and by sometimes this should mean all the time, every time, forever.
Sometimes.
So, this is awesome that this is fixed. Again, haven't tried it myself to, know that this is, stop spitting out insane errors for absolutely no reason. But this was driving me absolutely insane when every time I would exit play mode or, an entity would get destroyed that I had selected and I would just get completely spammed with errors. Even if it was on the collapse, the errors were slightly different. So they didn't all collapse together and it was just a mess of errors. So, you don't want to have that much noise. That kind of noise is not awesome.
No. Yeah, that's the kind of noise.
So yeah, see, we got a lot of chat here. Just going to go ahead and catch up real quick here. Sweet. So yeah, we can move over to the next thing. So entities graphics. Not a whole lot of stuff in here as far as changes go, but render mesh unmanaged is a new thing, which they added an unmanaged iComponent data using the new Unity Object Ref, which Danny is very much a fan of, I know, for big performance gains in baking, exclamation point in the changelog on that one. And then further, it goes to say in deprecated things, the baking shared component of type render mesh is now obsolete in favor of the new render mesh unmanaged. So it sounds like they're kind of making a switch over to this render mesh unmanaged, which has major performance benefits, especially in baking.
So like using the new Unity Object Ref, I guess they are like referencing the mesh and materials through a different style or something. I don't know.
I believe so. Yeah. And yeah, it sounds like, yeah, this is now an unmanaged component, whereas I think this render mesh was just a managed component. So.
Yeah, I shouldn't say. I don't remember exactly how it's turned. Yeah, but yeah. The more unmanaged stuff, the better, because managed is slow, or well, usually slower. So yeah,
Looks like these are some of Danny's changes.
Yay. Can't they? Yeah.
We got Luke is a fan of render mesh unmanaged. I do like it. I like it. Render mesh unmanaged, does that mean we have a change in the way we can switch mesh and material of an entity at runtime? I do not know. It sounds like that this maybe only affects baking. But again, I haven't had a chance to play around with this myself, but because I know that is kind of a pain of like switching meshes and materials on an entity at runtime. Do you have to do that much in your game at all?
Yes. I have a very strange situation where I have simulated chains, like there's pipes going on the weapons, which are simulated in like shake, like secondary physical animations, and I need to drive them through points that are simulated and send them over to the shader, which does the actual rendering, like the spline rendering, and because there's a variable amount of nodes in the chain, I can't use material overrides where you just put out
change the color or change the
yeah. I need to have a variable amount of 3D points, so I do that with a structural buffer, which send over a bunch of floats to the GPU, and that I can't do through any of the dots versions. So I need to find which material it is, make a copy out of it, and set a bunch of structural buffer data on it, and I need to go through a bunch of different annoying entity graphics APIs. Some of them I had to do public instead of internal because they are so hidden. But just a thing here, I just looked up. Render mesh is like a struct, like a shared component, but it references mesh and material. The classes mesh and material. So obviously that's not burstable.
The regular Unity engine,
I presume the Unity, what did they call it? Unity Object Ref is the thing that they use instead to be able to reference those assets with and still have it burstable. That would be my guess.
Right. Also, Luke says material mesh info works well for swapping meshes and materials at runtime. So if you're still using the existing,
for swapping, it's probably a good idea, but it's still a lot of tricky things messing with the materials through dots because of how the managed and unmanaged thing doesn't really come together super nicely sometimes.
Yeah. And Danny does clarify that this is not for runtime, but he's going to find the samples of why it makes stuff easier. Sweet. So that was pretty much all I wanted to go over on Entity's graphics. And then I do just want to call out that netcode for Entities did receive an update as well. It's mostly performance related things. I don't think this is really going to change anything as far as my netcode for Entities tutorial, which I'm very thankful for. I'm probably just going to go ahead and try and upgrade the project to this 1.2.0-pre.12 version just to make sure everything still works, because might as well, because the project is still or the video hasn't been released yet, and if people go to install the latest version, then they might come across this one. So I just want to make sure that all works. And the physics version did receive an update as well. Again, these are mostly just kind of performance related things, nothing really too exciting or interesting as far as new features go in here. But yeah, new Unity ECS version. Exciting stuff.
New shiny stuff, always fun.
What's a version of ECS is your project on again? Is it just kind of like the vanilla 1.0?
1.0.0.16? Could that
Yeah,
be?
I think 16 is the like if you look at the
But like maybe
1.0.16.
Oh yeah. I
You added in
suspected
an
I might
extra
put
zero.
another zero, but I have like 50 significant modifications to it, so it's yeah, I'm stuck on that for a while, I think.